Hi, how's it going? My name is Joe, and I volunteer here with the Denver Voice, and welcome to your orientation. This is the first part of it, the video part of it, and in this we're going to cover a wide range of things. Most importantly, the rules and laws of the Denver Voice and bending the paper. There's going to be a lot of things that we are going to be covering, so it's very important to pay attention during this. And obviously, if you have any questions, I'm not going to be able to answer them right now, but somebody will be coming along after the video part is done, and they can answer any questions you have. And they're also going to give you a short quiz and test you with some flashcards. And all this is just to make sure that you are paying attention and that you are aware of all the rules and everything that you need to know when you're out there bending the paper. So let's go ahead and get started. The whole orientation is going to take about 45 minutes to an hour to do. And you should have a vendor orientation sheet. And everything we're going to be talking about is going to be in here. I might skip around in maybe a couple of different orders in here, but all the information is in this packet. And another thing they give you is a panhandling sheet. And it's about this, it says panhandling on the top, but it deals with aggressive panhandling. And this is very important for you to read. We're going to touch on some of these things during the orientation, but it's important to read this on your own time so you can be completely aware of where the gray lines are with aggressive handling and bending the papers. So it's very important to read that on your own time. So let's go ahead and get started with this. Let's start now. Just going to give you a brief history of the paper. The paper started in 1996 and it stopped publishing for a couple of years and then it relaunched in October 2007. Behind me you can see some different front pages and the covers and vendor profiles of some various issues that have come out since that time. And it's a really good publication. That's one thing. When you're out there vending this, you're vending a paper that is a very good product. It's an award-winning paper. It covers, the articles it covers deals with homeless issues, poverty issues. There's things in there on art, music, all kinds of different, a wide variety of subjects. And one of the things that's cool about this program is it's got a lot of recognition in the metro area. Just not in the downtown area where we have a lot of vendors, but throughout the metro area. Whenever I mention to anybody that I volunteer with the Voice, just about everybody I mention it to, they all know what I'm talking about. Either they've bought a paper, or they've seen vendors, or they have some kind of knowledge about what the program is about. And that's all thanks to the hard work of the vendors that have been here before you guys and the vendors in the program right now. They're making it easier for you guys to go out there and get started doing this. So you owe them big thanks. Even if you don't know them, you owe them big thanks. But they've just really made this a lot easier for people to come in and get started with. And as I said, it's a really good product, and so you know you should feel pretty good in selling this. So the way the paper works is it comes out once a month. And as we're filming this video, this is October 2011. So the way this is the paper, you could sell the October 2011 issue until the November 2011 issue comes out, and they normally come out on the first business day of the month. And so you could sell it up until 9 o'clock of that morning because that's when we open the distribution and that's when we start selling the brand new edition. So once the new issue starts being sold at 9 o'clock that first business day of the month, you can't sell the old issue any longer. So saying that, you want to watch how many papers you buy as you're going through the month. You don't want to come in on the last day of the month and buy like 100 papers unless you really are sure you're going to be able to sell all 100 of them, because once you buy them, they're yours. You can't return them. You can't get credit on them. Once you buy them, they're yours. So if you have any papers left over at the end of the month, you could go ahead and throw them out if you want. You could put them in a recycling bin. You can bring them back to us, and when you come to the office, you'll see a big mountain of papers in the corner that we're going to send to be recycled. You can bring them to us, and we'll recycle them for you. I think the best thing to do with this is to get the old issue and put it inside the new issue. And that way you could sell 2 papers for the price of 1. Maybe kind of put that in your pitch, because people love 2-for-1s. No matter what it is, people like getting things free. 2 for 1, 2 for the price of anything, people like that. And what it does, it'll give people, if they've never bought the Voice before, it gives them a good example of what the paper's like. They can get the current issue, they get the old issue, they can see the variety in the newspaper, and that's a way to kind of get somebody hooked in and maybe be a regular customer of yours every month. So that's what I would suggest to do with them. It takes like half a second to put that old issue inside the new one, because like I said, once the new paper comes out, you can't sell the old one any longer, but you can still make that old issue work for you by doing something like that. To get you started today, we are going to give you 10 free papers. And any papers you buy after that are going to be 50 cents a piece, but to get you started, we're going to give you 10 free. The most important thing we're going to give you today, though, is going to be your vendor ID badge. That is the most important thing we're going to be giving you today, along with all the information you need, but the vendor badge is the most important thing because you have to have that with you at all times when you're vending the paper. You have to have it with you when you come in here to buy papers. If you don't have the badge with you, we can't sell you anything. If you're out there vending and you don't have a badge visible, you can get a ticket for aggressive panhandling. So that badge is, like I said, most important thing we're going to give you today. If you lose the badge, it's like $5 to replace, so always try to hang on to it. If you're out there vending and you decide you need to take a little break or something, or once you're done, just put the badge away, tuck it inside your jacket, shirt, in a bag or something, but don't have it visible when if you're not vending. So always make sure you have that out and visible though when you are out there. We're covered under the First Amendment. So being covered under the First Amendment, we're not technically selling the paper, we're asking for donations for the paper. So each issue is marked on the front cover as a $2 donation. Now, you can't ask for more than $2, you can't ask for less than $2. But if somebody comes up to you and they want to give you $5 for the paper, you can definitely accept it. Just can't ask for it, but if they want to give it to you, you can accept it. And if you guys know any vendors that are out there, you probably have heard stories about people getting $5, $10, $20 for each issue, or what have you. People respond to the vendors of the voice, and I think it's because they recognize that this is your business, that this is a little business of your own that you're running. And you're not panhandling, you're not begging for money, you're working out there, and people respond to that. And I think that's why people with the Denver Voice do as well as they do with it, because I think people do respond to the fact that you're running your own little business here. So again, you can't ask for more than $2, but if they want to hand it to you, God bless, thanks very much, you can definitely accept it. Another thing, since we're covering the First Amendment, if somebody would come up to you and say, hey, I always see you guys out here with the paper, but I really don't know what this is about, but can I have one of these for free? I just want to read one before I buy it. You're obligated to give them a free paper. Like I said, we're covering the First Amendment, so you have to give them a free one if they ask for it. Now, saying that, it's not going to affect your profits any. As we get towards the end of the orientation, you can see how that kind of comes into play, but it's not going to affect anything, but you are obligated to give them one. One thing I always do caution people about, though, when you come down here to distribution, you're going to see people are kind of hanging around, they hang out, they drink coffee, they're outside smoking cigarettes, they chit chat, they're probably playing chess, it's kind of a little hangout before they go out and get their workday started. Kind of get familiar with some of the faces you see around here, some of the faces, especially if you're vending downtown, get familiar with some of the faces you might see vending the paper, because you might have one of those faces come up and ask you, hey, can I have a free paper? Because unfortunately, there are some people who know that you are obligated to give out a free paper, and then they'll come get one from you, and then they go try to sell it. So you want to be familiar with the people around you, and if one of those faces that looks familiar comes up and says, hey, can I have a free one? You can ask them, are you a vendor? And if they go, oh yeah, I am, well, you don't need to give them one, but you got to give people from just the general public one. So it's one of those things you got to kind of have a gut feeling for, but always you feel free to ask that question. If they say they are, you don't need to give them a paper. Another thing, you're an independent contractor. Once the orientation is all done, the video part and the live person part, you're going to be signing a contract saying that you understand the rules and regulations of the Denver Voice and that you're an independent contractor. That means that you are going to be taking care of your own taxes. We don't get involved with the IRS, we don't take any kind of IDs or anything like that. That's all going to be on you guys to handle. If you have to report any of this money for taxes, that's on you to take care of. We don't get involved with any part of that. The hours that you work, that's going to be up to you. However many hours you want to put into it, as little as you want, as much as you want, it depends on what you need out of this. So the hours, like I said, that's totally up to you how many hours you put into it. If you are going to be vending down at the 16th Street Mall, just be aware that the hours that you can be down there vending the paper are from 6 in the morning until midnight. So you got an entire day to be out there if that's what you choose to do, but those are the hours you can be out on the mall if that's what you choose to do. Where can you go to vend the paper? You can go pretty much anywhere you want to. There are going to be some gray areas though, and we're going to touch on those in just a minute. But the basic rules, the ones to always remember, you got to stay 15 feet away from doorways, 15 feet away from outdoor dining patios. It's kind of like that no smoking rule where you got to be 15 feet away from a building when you smoke. Same thing applies with this. You got to be 15 feet away from doorways, 15 feet away from patios. I would stay 15 feet away from ATMs. Other basic things, you don't want to block any, just kind of some common sense stuff. You don't want to block entranceways to buildings. You don't want to get in the way on a crosswalk. If you can find a payphone that works, you don't want to stand in the way of a payphone if somebody needs to use that. So it's just some common sense stuff along with the rules, but always remember 15 feet away from doorways and things like that. Another thing you can't do, you can't walk up and down the street selling the paper. A couple of reasons. One reason, against city ordinance. It can be considered aggressive panhandling, so you can't walk up and down the street selling the paper. The other reason is one I kind of came up with, and that is you just would be walking with people who have already made the decision they don't want to buy the paper. So why do you want to walk with them? You're just going to blend in with foot traffic. Nobody's going to see that you're out there vending. You're just going to blend in with everybody else, and you're walking with people that already told you no. That's why put yourself on a corner. That way you could see people coming towards you. They could see you as they're approaching you. Put yourself nice and visible, and that's going to give yourself the best chance to move some papers. So just always put yourself on a corner and make yourself nice and visible and approachable and all those good things. Another thing, you can't lean against a building when you're vending the paper. You can't like lean up or prop yourself up against a building. You can't sit down on one of the benches down in the mall or those great big comfortable flower pots. You can't do anything like that because they can consider that loitering, and that's another thing you get ticketed for. So if you're doing that, like I said, you got to stand on the corner and vend the paper. If you do need to take a break and you want to sit down on the bench, never sit down on those flower pots. Trust me, I know firsthand. They will hassle you about that. But if you want to take a break and sit down on a bench or something, just make sure you put the badge away so it's not visible, and that way it will avoid any kind of confusion as if you are sitting and trying to vend the paper. So just put that badge away. And the last one, this one is very important. If, say you've been talking to somebody and they seemed interested in buying the paper and they were like, oh yeah, that sounds really good, and they were really interested in doing it, and then at the last minute they're like, you know, I don't have enough money, or I just have a 20, I don't want to break it, I'll catch you next time. Don't follow after them trying to change their mind or trying to get them to buy the paper. Don't follow after them. Just say, okay, thanks very much, have a good day, I'll be here tomorrow, find some, you know, we're all around, just you can find one of us. Don't follow after them though, because they can consider that aggressive panhandling, and if any of the authorities, you know, would see you doing something like that, they will definitely give you a ticket on that. And like I said, that's just a fine and a hassle you don't need. So if they change their mind, don't follow after them trying to get them to re-change their mind and buy the paper. Vendor rules. We just have a few of them, and they're just really common sense stuff, things that apply to any kind of a job, any kind of a business. First one is sobriety. You've got to be sober when you come in here to buy the papers. If you're not, we're not going to sell you any. And obviously, you've got to be sober when you're out there vending the paper. If you're not, people are going to see that. They will go right past you, go to the next vendor. And if you get caught drinking while you're out there vending the paper, we had a problem with this a couple of summers ago where there were a group of vendors that would be out there vending and drinking at the same time. You're terminated. Badge is pulled, no questions asked. That's just like any other kind of job. You get caught drinking on the job, you're going to be terminated. Courtesy. Obviously, you got to be courteous to everybody that's out there, whether it's the public, other vendors. Courtesy goes a long way in anything, and especially with something like this. Somebody could pass you up 15, 20 times in a month. But if you're friendly, if you're approachable, eventually something might click with that person. They're going to be like, you know, every time I walk by that guy, he's out there vending the paper, he always seems so happy, and he seems like he's having a good time. He's like, let me, you know, they might be like, let me buy one of these, and just kind of, you know, see what this thing's about. You never could tell what that little interaction could maybe lead to. You might become that guy that, and we hear these stories all the time, and if you know any vendors, you might hear these stories as well. You might become that guy that, you know, hey, I got some leftover lunch, you know, I'm not going to eat it, you know, I'll let him have it, you know, or I got a new coat for the winter, I'm not going to be able to use the one I have now, let me pass it along to him. Got an extra $5, I don't need the paper, I already bought one, but let me pass it along. Being courteous and making yourself friendly and approachable, you never know what that can maybe lead to. So always look like you're having fun with this. Have fun with it. Don't just look like you're having fun, have fun with it. And that's going to translate to people as they see you, and trust me, it is going to help. The badge, obviously, again, the badge, can't emphasize that enough. Always make sure you have that visible when you're vending. You have to have that visible, because otherwise, like I said, you're opening yourself up for an aggressive panhandling ticket. Always make sure you have that badge with you, and when you come here to buy papers. Supplying papers. The way I like to put this, the papers you come in here and buy from us, those are papers for you to make money with. So this kind of goes back to what I said before about, you know, recognizing faces. Like I said, this is a little community here, and you're going to start to recognize people. One of those people you recognize might come up to you someday and say, hey, I couldn't make it down to distribution this morning, can you front me 10 papers, you know, I'll pay you for them tomorrow, or, you know, whatever they might tell you. Don't do it. Because first of all, you don't know what their story is. Yeah, maybe you might have seen them around distribution before, but maybe they got caught drinking on the job and they got terminated. Maybe they're on suspension for something else. They might be taking those 10 papers and giving them to somebody that's not even a vendor, but they're going to turn around and try to sell the papers. The papers that you buy, like I said, they're papers for you to make money with. You give that guy 10 papers, that could be 20, 50, 30, however much money it might be out of your pocket that you're never going to see again. So don't supply papers to anybody. The papers you buy, they're just for you. Don't give them to anybody else. The last rule here is panhandling. What you do on your own time is your business. It's kind of like the drinking. What you do on your own time, that's your business. But when you're vending the voice, no panhandling. That's another way to get your badge pulled. I keep using this one poor guy as an example, but a couple years ago I was walking down the street and everybody sees them, all those guys down in the mall with the signs for restaurants and different businesses they're promoting. This guy had one for a nail salon. He's out there twirling around the sign for the nail salon. With the other hand, he's asking people for change as they're walking by. That's a big no-no. You can't do that when you're vending the voice. But so always kind of remember that. That's a good way to lose your badge. Okay, the first one that we're not allowed to be at is the Starbucks at 16th and Curtis. What had happened there is on 2 separate occasions, they had 2 vendors OD in the bathroom. After the second OD had happened, the Starbucks contacted us and said, hey, we don't want any more vendors in front of our business, which is their right. They have every right to do that, and honestly, I can't blame them. You know, so, and it's too bad because, like I said, Starbucks are pretty busy, a lot of business in and out, especially on that one. And so not to be have any vendors in front of that business is a shame. We can have vendors on the other corners on 16th and Curtis, but it's not in front of the Starbucks. The next business we're not allowed in front of is the Walgreens over on Colfax and Race. And to me, I think this one is even worse than the Starbucks because that was always a great location for vendors. We had a couple of vendors there that were members of the 300 Club, and I'll talk about what the 300 Club is here in a little bit. But, you know, we always had vendors do really, really well there. The management of the Walgreens appreciated having the vendors there. They almost kind of looked at it as an extra security guard or something. So it was always a good relationship there. Well, then we had a couple of vendors who took it upon themselves to act like that property belonged to them when it didn't belong to either one of them. Whoever got there first had the right to be there. But these guys just started getting into huge arguments in front of this Walgreens all the time. The arguments started coming down here to distribution. The arguments were going anywhere they saw anybody that was connected with a voice, and it really was getting out of hand. And to make matters worse, one of the guys, when he was out there vending the paper, he had his wife with him, or girlfriend, whoever she was panhandling. So when that started, the managers called the voice and said, hey, we like you guys, we've always worked with you guys, but we just can't have what's going on in front of our business. And this is the Walgreens over on Colfax. If you've ever been in there, you know how sketchy that place could be. And if it got that bad for them to say something, you know that it was bad. So those are just a couple of examples of people being idiots and just kind of messing things up for everybody. So saying that, if you ever see anybody out there doing things that you know are not part of what the way the voice runs, or anything that we went over in orientation, if you see people doing anything you know that they're breaking the rules, your job with the voice is to make money for yourself. It's not to be, police the program. But if you see something going on, let us know about it. Don't take it into your own hands to fix it, but let us know. We have a complaint form you could fill out. If you could get a name and a badge number, fantastic. If not, what was happening, where it was happening, what the person looked like. I know it sounds like a police report. You're not being a snitch. We just want to make sure that we don't have to add another Walgreens or Starbucks to this list. It's a good program. It's been a good opportunity for a lot of people. We just want to continue it going in that direction. So if you see anybody doing anything that you know isn't right, please let us know about it. Don't take it into your own hands to fix it. Now we're going to talk about the 16th Street Mall. We have a lot of rules along the 16th Street Mall, and even if you have no plans on ever vending down there, you have to be aware what the rules are, just because they're so close with distribution to the mall. And there might be some morning when you find yourself out there. You might walk out there and be like, hey, there's nobody else here. I'm going to give this a try. So that's why everybody that goes through orientation, that comes through the program, they have to know what the rules are on the 16th Street Mall. So we're going to go over those right now. The main rule we have, the big rule we have, is we're allowed to have one vendor per block. And when you look at this map, anywhere else in the city, all of these would be individual blocks, anywhere else. But along the 16th Street Mall, it's a little bit differently. Works a little bit differently. Both sides of the street equal the block. So this all right here is a block, that's a block, that's a block, all the way down the mall, those are all blocks. Easiest way to remember it is that the mall shuttle cuts the block in half. So if we have a vendor that's over here on the corner of 16th and Curtis, he's the vendor in that location. We can't have anybody else on those 3 blocks. You'd have to go to the next block over. If you wanted to go to 17th and Curtis, that's fine. If you want to go to 15th and Curtis, that's fine. But as long as somebody's right there, nobody can go on those other 3 corners. You'd have to go to the next street. If somebody was over here, you'd have to go to the next street. So that's just kind of how that works on the 16th Street Mall. And that's the big rule that we have down there, is the one vendor per block. Now, if you've ever been downtown, you'll understand how sometimes it gets pretty busy. and especially around lunchtime. And it's going to be kind of hard maybe sometimes to tell if somebody is on the same side of the street as you. If somebody's right directly across the street or on the corner on the other side, then okay, there's no excuse. You guys should be able to see each other. But if you're on the same side of the street, sometimes it might be a little bit hard, especially this time of year when we're filming this. It's starting to get a little bit cold out, so people kind of start moving a little bit closer to the buildings. So you might kind of be around a corner to where somebody can't see you, or vice versa. On the other side of the street, you might not be able to see them. And if that happens, that's when the guys who are the mall ambassadors, the guys in the yellow jackets, they're going to come over and they're going to say, hey, you guys are doubled up. We don't know who was here first. You guys got to work this out. And that's exactly what you need to do. You need to work it out amongst yourself to see who was there first. So you guys got to get together, got to talk it over. And sometimes, we don't want to have another situation like we had at the Walgreens that I talked about. We don't want to have any arguments or anything like that over turf out there. So you might have to be the bigger person in a situation. You might know that you were the person who was actually there first, but if the other person is just being completely disagreeable and doesn't want to hear it, it might be a case where you might just kind of have to be the bigger person and say, okay, you can have this corner, I'll go find someplace else. Like I said, we don't want to have any fighting about it, but sometimes you got to just be the bigger person and step away from that kind of a situation. But they leave it up to you guys to figure out who was there first. Another rule that we have down in the 16th Street Mall is the person who first gets to a spot first and physically occupies that spot, that's yours. Nobody can push you off of that spot. The only exception to that is a member of the 300 Club. But with the first vendor rule, if you're physically occupying that spot, that's yours. But if you leave it for any reason, if you leave it to go to the bathroom, to go get a smoke, to grab a cup of coffee, a soda, something, as soon as that spot is vacated, then it's up for grabs. Then anybody can move in, but as long as you're physically occupying that spot, again, that is going to be yours. Now you might find situations where somebody will come up and just say, hey, this is my spot, you got to move. And they're not a member of the 300 Club or, things along those lines. They're just trying to get you to move off of a spot. Again, you might be in a situation where you might have to be the bigger person and walk away from that. But that's the kind of thing you need to let us know about as well. How I talked about earlier, if you see anybody breaking the rules, if you see vendors going out there bullying other vendors off of spots, that's something to let us know about. Because if they're doing that to you, I can guarantee they're going to be doing it to other people. So that's another thing you need to let us know about. Now I keep talking about the 300 Club. Now I'm going to mention finally what the 300 Club is. What that is those are vendors that have sold 300 papers in 1 month. And I know that sounds like a lot, and it is. It's a pretty good ambition, a good goal to have in the program. And if you think about it, 300 papers in a month, that's like 10 papers a day over 30 days, or if you do 15 papers a day and you don't have to be out there every day of the month. So it's a lot of papers, but it is an attainable goal. But the 300 Club, those are the top sellers in the program. And as one of the perks of being in the 300 Club, you get to choose a spot that's your own turf, your own corner. And the way this works is any papers that you take out of the door here, whether they're free papers, whether they're papers you bought, those all count towards that sales total. So we keep track of every single paper you take out of the door here. You'll probably keep, it's your own business, so you should be keeping track of them as well, all the papers that you take out. And especially if you're getting to the point where you're getting close to that, taking out 300 papers a month, you should definitely be keeping track of that. And when you get to that level, it's going to be like, wow, I think I'm pretty close to being at 300. I should probably check with the office. And you'll come in, you'll check with somebody here, and it'll be like, yeah, you're at 300. Congratulations. Do you have a spot that you want to pick? And then you'll say, well, I've been doing pretty good over at 17th and Welton, or wherever the spot might be. Has anybody claimed that spot? They'll check. If nobody's claimed that spot, that's going to be your spot of your very own. So what happens then is you're going to get a new ID badge, which looks like this. And it's going to be like what you have right now, except it's going to have it's going to say 300 Club vendor on it, and it's also going to have the corner that is your spot. So the way this works then is that, say you pick 17th and Welton as your location, and you show up at 17th and Welton and a vendor is standing there. So what you do is you show them your badge, say, hey, thanks for keeping the spot warm, but this is my spot. Show them the badge, and those are the only people you need to move for if it's a member of the 300 Club. Now saying that, say you're vending someplace and somebody comes up and says, hey, I'm in the 300 Club, you need to move, this is my spot. look at their badge. If you're standing at 16th and Arapahoe and their badge says 17th and Welton, you don't need to move in that case. You only have to move for the spot that is listed on their badge. And this is another case where if somebody comes and tries to get you to move off a spot saying, hey, I'm in the 300 club, you got to move from this location, let us know about it, because those guys should know better than that. That is the only time spot you have to move from is the one listed on their badge. So always remember that, okay? If you look around the office, like I said, some of these front pages that we have here, they're pretty colorful, pretty eye-catching. Some of those covers are going to help sell those papers in themselves. But, so you really want, I mean, you're going to see some vendors that are going to just stand out there like this, and they're just going to hold the paper like that, and they're not going to say anything. And if that works for them, God bless them, that's great. But the best way to do it is to get that whole paper out there. Let that whole cover be shown. You know, put that whole thing out. And have some kind of a pitch. Do something to draw attention to yourself. One thing we tell people to do is stay away from the generic, hey, help the homeless kind of pitch, because first of all, the money that they're giving you is going directly to you. It's helping you directly. It's not going to St. Francis, it's not going to the road home, it's not going to a food bank, it's not going to, you know, Jesus Saves, it's not going to any kind of a shelter or anything. It's going directly to you. And I think that's another reason why people respond so well to people from the Denver Voice, because they know if they read the paper that the money that they give you is going directly to you. So there isn't that kind of question of like, well, I just donated this money, who's it ending up, you know, who's actually benefiting from it? They see that it's benefiting you. And I think that makes a big difference. It makes them feel good, that they know, hey, I just helped this particular vendor, and I think that kind of helps feed why so many vendors are so successful with this. So kind of stay away from that help the homeless kind of pitch. You know, try to personalize a little bit. Find some kind of way to, you know, put your own little story to it or your own little twist. Keep it simple, keep it real, keep it honest, but you know, try to personalize it a little bit. We have some examples in the orientation sheet that you have. You can use some of those. You could, you know, find your own little, like I said, your own little twist on it. But try to personalize it a little bit and stay away from that, hey, help the homeless kind of generic pitch. Because like I said, it's helping you, not a program, and people respond to that. That's the other thing too, is how you put yourself out there. I mean, people, like I said earlier, they respond to how you, if you're approachable, if you're friendly, you know, things like that. And the other thing too is getting in the right spot. It's like they say in business, and like I said, this is your own little business you're running. Location, location, location. That is huge. It's not a cliche. It's true. Huge. Huge, huge, huge. And getting in that right spot, that's the key sometimes. If you find the right spot and you're there all the time, and you're consistent and you're friendly, you become part of that community in that area, whether it's downtown or in the suburbs or wherever it is. But you know, people, they have their place they go to get their coffee, they have their place they go to get their sandwich, they have their place they go get their haircut, their shoes shined. You become the person they get the voice from. You become the person that they will give a couple extra dollars to if they have some to spare. And that's just kind of how it works. One example that I use all the time, my sister has a friend who works in an office building downtown. The same vendor, a guy named Mike, has been there forever. He was sick for a couple weeks and he was gone. My sister's friend is calling her, hey, can you ask Joe what happened to Mike? We haven't seen him in 2 weeks. Is he okay? Is there anything we could do? Da, da, da. And you hear stories like that because people get used to seeing you there. And like I said, you become part of their community. So finding that right spot is just huge. Can't emphasize that enough. And if you can find that right spot, excuse me, and you're there all the time and you're consistent and you're friendly, that can make all the difference. Another thing too, read the paper. It's a simple little thing, but if you read the paper and you know what kind of stories are in there, that can help you move a few papers too. If somebody comes up and asks you, hey, you know, I see you guys out of this, you know, with this thing all the time, you know, what kind of stories do you have in it? If you can't answer them, they're going to be like, this guy doesn't read it, why should I want to read it? So read the paper, get a working knowledge of what you have in it, know your product that you're selling. You know, it's a retail 101. And that can maybe help you move a few papers too. For coming in today, you're going to get 10 free papers. And those, like I said, those count towards your sales total. If you recruit anybody, if you have somebody come in to do an orientation, you're going to get 10 free papers once they sign up. The way this works, we do have some slips we can hand out. It'll have you can write down your name and your badge number. You can hand those out to people to tell them to bring those back in. You just tell them to mention your name or your badge number. And this way you'll get credit for it. They have to go through the orientation, and once they sign up, then you're down to get those 10 free papers. So if you can get 4 or 5 recruits to come in each month, that's going to be 40 or 50 papers that you can get once they sign up. So there's a lot of different ways you can get some free papers from us, and then, like I said, that all kind of counts towards your sales total. The First time you sell 50 papers in a month, and this is one time only, you're going to get 10 free papers for that. Each month, when you distribute 100 papers in a month, you're going to get another 10 free papers for that. And when you hit 150 papers sold in a month, you're going to get another 10 free papers for that as well. Now, if you do make it to the 300 club, you're going to get 50 free papers for that one. So like I said, you can kind of see how you can kind of build that sales total up with a lot of free papers. And again, if you ended up having to give away a few free papers, it's not affecting anything. So that's kind of how that works. Another thing too with the 300 club, and I didn't mention this before, but with the 300 club, if you hit that 300 level one month, and then the next month, say for whatever reason, maybe you got sick, or you were working on getting housing, or you just had some other stuff you were doing, and you weren't able to be out there as much as you needed to be to get back to that 300 level, you don't automatically lose your spot. You don't automatically, oh, that spot is gone. That's not how that works. You do get a 30-day grace period. And so if you get back to the 300 level after that 30 days, then you can keep that spot. So, but if you miss it 2 months in a row, you will lose your spot. You miss it 1 month, you get another month to make it up. You miss 2 months, then you do lose that spot. So that's kind of how that works. Top 10 vendors for the month are going to get a total of 20 free papers. And if you are the top vendor of the month, you're going to get 50 free papers. So like I said, there's a lot of different ways that you can get some free papers to build up that sales total. We are here at 22nd and Champa every Monday through Friday from 9 o'clock to 11. And this is where you can pick up papers. You can check to see if you have any freebies coming, any incentives. You get your ID badges here, orientations. I forgot to mention before, if you do have somebody come in for an orientation, tell them to make sure to be here by 10 o'clock because we start doing orientations at 10 o'clock sharp. As you can see, they take about 45 minutes to an hour, so that's why they need to be here by 10. So make sure to emphasize that with them. If they come in a little bit late, but they can't get in on that day's orientation because once we get started, we don't hold up for anybody else. But so that's what goes on here on Monday through Friday from 9 to 11. We do an afternoon distribution on Monday, Thursday, and Friday, and that's from 2 to 3 down at 16th and Curtis. What we do is we roll a big cart of newspapers down to the corner there. It's right across from the Rock Bottom Brewery, kind of cat-a-corner from the Starbucks we can't vend in front of. So right there at 16th and Curtis, and we'll roll out some papers. All we do there is we just sell papers. We don't do anything else. We just sell papers. And if the weather's bad, if it's rainy or if it's snowy, or like I said, we push a big cart down there. If we can't get that cart through the snow, we'll bring afternoon distribution here. And like I said, we're going to do it somewhere. It'll either be here or down. We try to keep it down on the mall because it's just convenient for people. A lot of people are vending downtown, so we try to keep it downtown if we can, but if we have to bring it down here, we will, depending on the weather. The other thing too, that's your last chance to get papers on the weekend. If you need papers for the weekend, you got to get them that Friday, and that Friday between 2 and 3 is the last chance to get those. So if you're going to need any, you got to get down there by then. And if you have any interest at all in ever doing this up in Boulder, because you can take this anywhere in the state to vend the paper. It doesn't just have to be in the metro area. You can go up to Fort Collins, you can go to Loveland, you can go wherever you want. Colorado Springs we have vendors go down to. I had a vendor say he was going to go down to Pueblo. That's my hometown, so it's kind of like, so you could take it different places throughout Colorado. But if you have any interest in doing it up in Boulder, you can buy papers up there at a place called the Carriage House, and they are there Monday through Friday, and they do it at 8:30 and 3 o'clock sharp. There's also another little orientation they do up there in Boulder because the rules down on the Pearl Street Mall are kind of similar to 16th Street, but there's a few things that are different, so they do a little bit of a different orientation up there for the Boulder vendors. But if you ever want to give it a try, I would say definitely go for it. And then last but not least, submissions. I think the coolest part of the newspaper, there's a section in the paper called In Your Own Words. And that is all writing from the people in the vendor program. And the 2 years that I've volunteered here, we have had some amazing writers come through this program. I've had a chance to read some really, really cool poetry, some really good short stories, some really cool artwork. Feel free to submit any of this stuff. If you have any questions about it, you can talk to Donovan or somebody else here how to do it. But what we do is you submit it to the editor, and if they agree to publish it, then you get paid for it. So it's kind of a cool thing the way that works. So don't hesitate to bring anything in, because like I said, we have some talented people in this program, and it's always been cool to read everything they have. And to me, like I said, I think that's the coolest part of the paper. So definitely bring your stuff in if you have anything. And last but not least, one thing I always tell everybody after we go through the orientation: don't get discouraged. When you're out there and you're giving this a try, it's like any new job, any new thing you're taking on for the first time. There's going to be those periods where you're going to be like, oh man, is this right for me? Is this the right fit? This just doesn't seem like it's working. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen vendors downtown that I did an orientation with, and I'm like, so how's it going? And they're just like, this just isn't working. I don't know what I'm doing wrong, whatever it might be. And I just think, okay, we're probably never going to see this guy again. 2 or 3 weeks later, they're coming in, buying 50, buying 100, buying 200 papers, and whether it's a combination of just getting the right spot, getting the right flow, getting the right pitch, whatever it is, all those little things coming together, it does come together. Realize that there is a community here that's willing to help you. We do have a really good community here. The other vendors, the people that work here and volunteer here, lean on us. If you have any questions, if you need help with anything, don't hesitate to ask. Like I said, it's a little community, it's a little family, and everybody kind of looks out for one another here too. So if you have problems, you have any questions or need advice, don't hesitate to come to anybody and ask. So again, good luck and wish you all the best out there. Do good.
Hi, my name is Gretchen Crow, and I'm a volunteer here with the Denver Voice. I want to thank each and every one of you for coming in today to go through the orientation. This is the first step for not only finding an economic tool, so you're finding work. This is legitimate work, it's hard work, it's honest work. But this is also a step to reclaim integrity. We have a wonderful group here. Almost as a community, and we welcome you into the program.